On Compassion by Griffin Tanner. Barbara Lazar Asher often uses many literary rhetoric devices to help convey her position on different topics. This topic is no different. For a quick reading of the story known as On Compassion, you can see that Barbara Lazar Asher talks about compassion compassionately, expressing the hope that humanity can come together as a whole and defeat the monster that is uncompassionate behavior. However, she realizes this is not an easy feat to accomplish. She's aware that humanity is not born with compassion, as seen in the quote, "I don't believe that one is born compassionate." Compassion is not a character trait like a sunny disposition. It must be learned. And it is learned by having adversity at our windows, coming through the gates of our yards, the walls of our towns. Adversity that becomes so familiar that we begin to identify and empathize with it. Basically, what this quote is saying is that the only real way to get humanity to come together is through hardship. Because without adversity, there can be no compassion. Barbara Lazar Asher properly displays these feelings with the many literary and rhetoric devices, including tone, modes of discourse, figurative language, selection of detail, use of questions, audience, and more. Let us start our analysis of this paper with modes of discourse. At the beginning of this paper, narration is made a key point. At the beginning, you are made to feel like you are just a helpless bystander, watching the moral discrepancies without being able to do anything about it. However, this quickly switches into a first-person perspective, with the person being Barbara Lazar Asher.
Dude, I have a sick ass. What the fuck, dude? This thing looks like Mortal Kombat.
Barbara Lazar Asher on an extraordinarily compassionate scene when a shopkeeper gives food and coffee to an old man down on his luck out of compassion for their fellow person. As seen in the quote, the owner of the shop, a moody French woman, emerges from the kitchen with a steaming coffee and styrofoam cup and a small paper bag of what? Yes, it's bread. Today is croissant. Silently and is gone. Unquote. Barbara uses this quote to show examples of compassion that occur in our everyday lives, without even noticing it. Another mode of discourse utilized in On Compassion is description. Throughout the entire paper, Barbara Lazar Asher thoroughly about the lives of downtrodden people of New York. The best example is when she speaks of the man, quote, his buttonless shirt with one sleeve missing hangs outside the waist of his baggy trousers.
Shit on accident.
Better time locked together. This gives the reader insight on the poor condition many people suffer from, and that of which could be resolved with a little compassion. Another very important device used in On Compassion is tone. By reading On Compassion, you can see that the tone is very skeptical, but at the same time open-minded to the idea of interhuman compassion. You can see this in the quote, "Twice I have witnessed is, and twice I have wondered what compels this woman to feed this man. Pity, care, compassion? Or does she simply want to rid her shop of his troublesome presence?" As you can see in this quote, Barbara Lazar Asher gives the store owner credit for thinking they are having good intentions by giving them the food and drink, but at the same time she feels that the compassion is not really there. Figurative language is also used quite often by Asher to portray her opinions on the topic of
Shit.
an example of this statement is with anecdotes. Anecdotes are defined as short stories about real incidents or people. Earlier in this paper, I quoted the story about the shopkeeper giving the man food and drink. Assuming this was not made up by Asher, this could be considered an anecdote describing her real relation to a moment of compassion, bringing it to life, and allowing the reader to take it at face value. Rhetorical questions are rampant in this paper as well. The first case of rhetorical question is, was it fear or compassion that motivated the gift? This causes the reader to really think about whether or not compassion is natural, or if it is something else that easily misconstrued as compassion. Another example of rhetorical question is, what compels this woman to feed this man? Pity? Care? Compassion? This causes the reader to think about feelings of compassion in everyday settings. Together to really show how Barbara Lazar Asher feels on the topic of compassion in everyday life.